Hi there, welcome to the Noah Presgrove case. Once again, we're looking into the heated debates and conversations to do with the autopsy report, the damage report, lack if not any bruises present, and trying to understand if there's none of that, then why do people push the idea of a beatdown, a beating, an attack, when the upper body area, where there's blood vessels, the head and face, should bruise if there was impact to be applied. Join me today as we look at from different points of views, with credit to Tim Daniels' post once again on Facebook. I'll add in my thoughts as well before we head on over to that. And I've also got some other opinions and ideas to share too in regard to reflection on the case, where it's going, how it is on YouTube, etc. Because it's a little bit disappointing, if I'll be honest with you, in comparison to other platforms. So welcome if you're currently here during the live premiere. Shout out to those that did manage to watch last night's video, and those that still have the hunger within the case. Of course, there's only so much that can be covered and thought of from time to time, but we still see some conversations here and there on the different posts. So welcome if you are present, and anyone else new to the case or to the channel. During this live premiere, feel free to share your thoughts, reactions live in the chat box on the right side. And if you do have any additional comments, any questions, answers, points of views, theories, disagrees, agreements, leave it all down below in the comment section under the video. It does help with spreading awareness and the engagement and getting the stuff out there. If you are interested, if you've missed out on any previous videos on the case, don't worry. The full playlist is available, top right corner where the eye symbol is up there. And if you want to support the channel, there is a PayPal link below in the comment section, pinned message by me, with channel membership link. So, to kick things off, when you look statistically at this case, what's really going on? Is it big? No. Is it popular? Not at all. Is it important? Absolutely. How many people are covering the case? In terms of creators, in terms of awareness, really no one except for me. Would anything change if big creators came on in and did one video? No, it makes no difference whatsoever. People come, people go, then move on. That is it. Cases and ongoing stuff in the present, Idaho 4, popular, constant coverage, news, official coverage will always bring people in. It's normally, whether it's the absolute truth and whether it's handled properly, it's the official media news groups are the backbone behind keeping cases active and then enabling the growth from there. So then the masses and general public that will always choose official news first or hear about it first there will then branch out and look for the real truth and beyond through creators and channels out there on different platforms. There's a process to it. The Charlie Kirk assassination, the case there, is a hot topic right now. Whether you officially call it true crime or / mystery, whatever. I haven't covered it because, is it because of jumping onto the bandwagon like how everybody else does? That's what people will do. It's very obvious. People will do what works, and that is a smart decision. But I'm not a sheep, okay? And knowing my luck with how deep I can go, I'd likely be silenced and YouTube would screw me over, as you've all seen, like with the Rebecca Zahow case. Big content creators cover the Rebecca Zahow case, they get the videos out there, and as soon as I do the same exact thing, what does YouTube do? Restricted video, because of the themes talked about. It's harmful, it's dangerous, it's sensitive. Well, tough fucking shit, because everyone else can do it except for me. How typical is that? Same bloody reality every damn time. And the same with the statistics too. It's ridiculous, it's embarrassing. But if the Noah Presgrove case received constant media coverage from the official news groups, constant, it would have enabled steady growth. It would have enabled more people coming on in and remaining for as long as the news coverage is done. When a big content creator covers a case, there's a small chance that people stick around. There's a very high chance people will walk away, move on to the next case, or with the channel to a different case. That's just how it works. It's the official news groups, media out there, through TV, satellite, or even online. If it's constantly covered, people will stick around and then branch out to the YouTube channels and then stick around that way. Perfect example is this case was dead in the dirt in terms of popularity some time ago. Then came the wrongful death lawsuit. Oh, and guess what happened all of a sudden? Media news groups decided to jump on in and finally cover the case because there was something newsworthy to cover, or at least officially. And then what did that do? It led to an influx in people coming into the case. It led to an influx of creators coming into the case. One-time videos, regurgitated content, regurgitated material, and that was it. Done, dusted, piss off. No additional updates. No reference, no credit given to the other creators or that one, which would be myself. No credit, no acknowledgement. And even if that wasn't to be mentioned or it's deemed as too entitled, put that aside, what about the material? What about the never seen before Snapchat videos? The never seen before media and footage from the party, which hardly anyone, if not anyone, has ever seen, and then the catalyst steps on in and shows it and analyzes it and breaks it down bit by bit, and credit to the individuals and viewers that have been able to see it and been around to, share their thoughts. But what about the majority of humans out there, the masses in this world that will come along at times, and then the other creators and the bigger channels that come on in just because the official media news groups decide to lay focus on the case because of one official thing, wrongful death lawsuit. Oh, and then it gently, slowly trickles through into the system, slowly trickles through into people coming to my channel temporarily. And that's why you see the statistics, how it went up to 1,000, if not a bit more, like how it used to be in the past. It went back up because of the official news coverage and attracting people and attracting others, chain reaction. Oh, and ever since that, it's died back down again because the news groups are pissed off, the masses have pissed off, the creators are pissed off. And if any have come on in, they tell regurgitated story, basic, boring, no additional updates, no inclusion of the never seen before party footage, which I was the one that received and shared it. Algorithm as well is pathetic. Reach is pathetic. And you know what? Humans will try and use certain words, certain defense mechanisms to try and change and alter it in a way to justify why it is the way it is and use it as an undertone insult. But the reality is, for the impetuous cretins out there and the majority of humans, is when you look statistically on TikTok, you will get a bloody reality check. The reality is, and I will share it in my community post sometime or another, how many subscribers do I have on YouTube? About 16,000. 16,000 subscribers. And how many does it translate to views in videos? Take in mind, it's not always a great measure, and most people won't use it for obvious reasons. It's pretty simplistic and self-explanatory. People come, people go, but people forget to unsubscribe. That's just how it works. And not everybody is committed. People lack commitment in this world. Many humans do. Very disappointing. But the reality is, when you look at it, 16,000 subscribers, and then in terms of the awareness aspect, what one is capable of, and you look at the views and the interest and the hunger and the lack of the popularity on the case, it doesn't translate very well or equal that much on YouTube at least. 400, 500, 600 views. Bit flat, isn't it? What did it used to be? Oh, when the case was more fresh, more popular, more media coverage and attention. It's self-explanatory, hence why it was the way it was and how it would be for other people too. But some people that whinge and whine about me, same mentality and intelligence as in the Dylan Rounds case for statistics, not being able to understand it. It's embarrassing. But you look at TikTok, how many followers do I have on TikTok? If you take off just recently, I had about 800. 800 followers versus YouTube 16,000 subscribers. Big difference, right? How many views did some of my TikTok videos get on the important material? For example, the never seen before Snapchat footage or selfie. I believe it was the one of Mikey, Jasmine, Logan in bed, countering Caden's timeline of 5:15 onwards. You know how many views that got on YouTube? About 1,000 or under 2,000 views. You know how many views it got on TikTok? At least 30,000 views, possibly 47,000. At least 30,000 people saw and watched my video on TikTok, and yet on YouTube, more established, somewhat more known, bigger following, and only got 1,000. How pathetic is that? And it makes me think it's the algorithm to blame. Because a lot of humans will always use defensive lines, especially if one is negative. Being negative can also mean being realistic and being honest, but it makes you the demon, it makes you the devil, and people will jump on that, okay? The moment you criticize, the moment you complain, and if it's upon yourself too, the defense mechanism within the human race is to simply say, oh, well, it's probably not good enough, and that's why it is the way it is. Or it's probably because of your delivery. It's probably because of the content within. It's probably because of the title, the thumbnail, and this and that, and said by humans that have no fucking clue what it takes or has any experience. But they keep on talking. And I say what I say because I'm in a position to do so. And from the experience and the statistics and the visuals and the comparisons and the contrast, I do have an idea or two. Because when you look at a dead end channel or you look at some dead end videos in which the material itself is highly valuable, highly important, never been seen before, never been talked about, that's the definition of some of my material, which I've pieced together and made. Highly, heavily, ultimately underappreciated because of the YouTube algorithm screwing over the Noah Presgrove case, screwing over justice for Noah Presgrove, and then a chain reaction beyond that. Because on TikTok, as dodgy of a platform as it can be, and constrictive and censoring and do-gooders and bullshit, just for uploading a video game of pixels, a cartoon video mobile game, and it's deemed as misinformation, it's deemed as dangerous, it's deemed as incorrect. What are they on about? It's a glitch, it might be an error, a mistake, an F up. Pathetic, right? And yet TikTok, for you, FYP, whatever the hashtags are, it seems to find the correct audience. It seems to find a broader range of people that have the hunger to watch and find, and the algorithm is a lot better than YouTube. How embarrassing. But at least on TikTok, the awareness of never seen before material reached 30,000+ people. That a part of the Caden Pressey audio interview managed to reach 30,000+ people. It's all there statistically on my TikTok page. You can check it out for yourself. And speaking of which, like the Jay Slater case, simply making observations, giving updates and thoughts and opinions, and that is it, despite some humans that like to show that resistance, which is very questionable. How did that translate just recently? Same video, same upload, different platform with the awareness aspect. One place platform established, the other one not so much, and the one that's not so much established performed better. Nearly 30,000 views in a matter of a day and a half. And then yet on YouTube, 500. Pathetic. But guess what? One is still going, one is still creating, and one is still being the catalyst. And it's worth mentioning that because humans do like to twist some of the words and imply it in other ways. But you know what the dumbest thing is with the human race at times is the fact they'll say, oh, this person is too focused on statistics or numbers. That's a bad thing. It makes them an evil person. It's twisted, it's corrupt, it's selfish, it's this and that. What do you think the whole point of awareness is? Spreading awareness so people learn about the truth. You want as many people to know the truth? Well, then of course you need the statistics to show that. My goodness. How can humans not pick up on that? It's weird, isn't it? And I noticed a few people along the way say, why do I refer to people as humans? What, you're not a human? Then what are you then? An alien? It's very unusual, isn't it? Anyway, thought I'd make those observations right now because I'm absolutely sick and tired of the bollocks, right? We'll see what happens with TikTok. Try and establish it over there if it's actually appreciated and the algorithm doesn't screw me over. What comes here comes first and always will. And then I can replicate that onto TikTok as well when I can. So what's uploaded here and then uploaded onto TikTok and see how it goes onwards down the line. That's depending on the size limit, the video length, because that's restricted. That's the only problem. But beside that, it seems to work elsewhere. And as long as there is awareness somewhere on some platform in bigger numbers, then people learn that way, which is a good thing. Should it have been done sooner? I guess so, but it can still be hit and miss, because granted, not every coverage is going to hit or get the awareness it deserves. It is still a lottery at the end of the day, which is stupid. A lottery equals gambling, gambling with someone's life, gambling with the case of someone in hopes of it getting awareness or not. That is pathetic. But the human nature is not everybody will be interested in certain cases or certain stuff, and you can't force people to do that. Some cases simply sell better than others, and that's a dark reality, but that's the truth. And whether it's a true crime case, a mystery case, a missing person case, an assassination case, what we've seen in recent time with the whole freedom of speech issue, very interesting how it differs. But if you look at a portion or a group of creators on YouTube and you see where they center or filter to and gather, there is a certain order and pattern and a direction and flow, and it seems a little bit obvious, right? But then when you see me, what happens with me, I might go in a certain direction, whether it's a popular one or not, but then I anchor down, I lock in, and I remain as other people fall, crumble, run, hide, etc. And it mainly just comes down to a stamina war. So when you get humans with time, let's say, what is stamina? What's that all about? Don't be silly. Where are they now? Where are they now? I don't see, I don't hear them. Oh, I'm here. Yeah, I am at this moment. Anyway, there is some video ideas to do on this case of Noah Presgrove, but the media aspect, the coverage there is just as important. And this theme and topic itself is extremely important, but if another creator was to cover it, a bigger one, oh, everybody would listen in, everyone would gather. But because it's me, because of being a smaller channel and all of that and the favoritism and elsewhere, people aren't going to give a fuck about this. Regular people will care and will acknowledge, and that's a big positive there. So shout out to the core audience, the core people, the regular viewers, and new people that do come on in. But as for the majority of humans out there that just simply don't know, and the reason why they don't know is because the algorithm screws it all up. That's what it comes down to, right? It's not to do with the quality, not to do with the content, it's not to do with the true material, it's just to do with the algorithm, because TikTok works at times when YouTube doesn't. Sometimes YouTube may work at times when TikTok doesn't. Hit and miss. It's not good, but that's just how it is. But what is hit and miss about the autopsy report in terms of trying to nail it on the head in understanding? Take in consideration that when it comes to the autopsy, do I have extensive experience there? No, I'm learning on the spot. Because people say, oh, you've done true crime for a long time, you're a true crime channel. What is that all about? You look at my channel, is it all about true crime? No. Has it been for a certain portion though? You can argue that. Reality is, my channel started off with gaming, gameplay, reviews, unboxings, some talks, some early psychological videos from the age of 14 onwards, dark predictions, which all came true down the line for me or just in general. Exactly. That long ago, that locked in some way or another. Then I transitioned from 2020 early onwards to mystery, missing person, Kenny Beach, M Cave, Mojave Desert, Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, Area 51, aliens and all of that. Yeah, really deep and open-ended. Then 2022, first ever true crime case, Dylan Rounds. Covered that all the way through from start to finish, 2022 to 2024. Yep, locked him. And then a little bit in between, the Christine Passe Parker case, missing woman. Is it Battle Road, Nevada or something? Eugene Mountains, where she was found in the end. Did some coverage there. The family appreciated it, which is a positive. Not a good outcome, but there was closure. A few little bits and bobs like that, on and off, but mainly focused on one thing. Then 2024, the next kind of true crime case in a way, which was and is Noah Presgrove. So before this case, how many true crime cases have I covered? 1. Exactly. And in that one case, was the autopsy shown at the time? No. Were the details given immediately? No. It was dragged out much later on. And I never got to see the autopsy from what I'm aware of or remember, and I think most people didn't really see it either. They might have been told this or that, but they weren't shown it because it was later, right? The fact that I've got zero experience when it comes to the medical field, when it comes to zero experience with autopsy reports, am I expected to know it all on the spot? No. But do I do a damn good job in trying to learn? Yes. Do other humans out there? Not so much. And that's why we're in a repetitive, endless cycle. Some people say there was no blood on the highway. What the hell's going on there? You can see the layers to it, how some people are satisfied with the amount of blood present because it's justified through certain means and medical terms and injuries. We'll get to that. Then you got the second tier where people are in acknowledgement and do approve of there is blood, but just not enough from their perception and how they think, right? A disconnect from tier 1. Then you got tier 3 who say there was no blood whatsoever. Tier 3 are influenced by tier 2. Tier 2 are not influenced by tier 1 because there is a disconnect. Can you see the order of things, the chain reaction or the broken chain reaction? It's tier 2 that impacts tier 3, and that might be through Chinese whispers, jumping the gun and not quite listening. Poor communication, poor language, poor wording, poor understanding, and then confusion, and then mass confusion, and then wasted time. When you really break it down, wow, really interesting the way it's going. Now, if I did cover the Charlie Kirk case, how many people would want that? And take in mind, it's a bit late, at least for me, and at least for understanding. Jumping in late to the party, trying to catch up on everything, it can be a messy job. And that's why I always understand it when people come to my channel, especially so deep into a case. I don't expect people to know everything. I expect people to question and answer and just be confused. It's very normal and understandable. And with the videos that I have, the links that I have, the playlist that I have, the specific videos I have, I just shoot them out. Boom, boom, boom. There you go. You want an answer? There you go. You want a reference? There you go. But too many people in this case say, well, this was said, that was said. Well, this was proved, that was discounted. They did that. They did that. This timestamp was provided. That record was provided. It was cleared up back then. They cleared that up. They sorted that out. That was finished. That was resolved. That was rubbish. That was BS. That was the truth. But no attempt, no effort, no links, no source, no credit, nothing. Just words. It's boring. You know? When I've done my videos, when I've made a reference or said something, I've given a reference, I've given credit, and at times I've provided links. And when people have wanted links, I've provided links. The only time I've been unable to do that, and I've made it clear, is the whole situation with Stevie Howard by saying, in her words roughly, cameras weren't working on the property, but the cameras did at some point record Texas boys leaving shortly after Noah Presgrove walked away. It's ingrained in my mind, but I can't show you it because I can't find it. But then the other stuff which I talk about in reference to, I provide you links and it's on my channel, it's documented, right? But a range of people over time haven't really explained where it comes from, or they've given a loose point without the actual hard evidence or from the horse's mouth. Just provide a link, you know? Maybe not everybody anticipates to have it or saves it, so then they can't use it. But, you know, there have been times, though, people in the background and elsewhere, big shout out to them, where I've said, right, do you have a screenshot of this? Can you remember that screenshot? And people actually try looking for it. And you know who you are, shout out to those people, right? And with the context as well, it is very helpful. Not everybody is going to have a library of screenshots, a library of evidence and material, but if you find it important, if it's important to you and important to tell the story and to spread the awareness, you should have it in reserves or somewhere to pass out as like a leaflet so people can see it for themselves instead of just words, which could be considered hearsay, right? Goes a long way. So when linking back to tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, with the blood, the lack of blood and the supposed no blood, I mean, even the news articles made the acknowledgement of blood being present, even if it wasn't deemed enough on the outside, right? When it came to my understanding of the blood, trying to understand, was there enough, was there a lack of it, I did videos. For people on the light side to attack me at times, you look back at my earlier videos, I did hard focused videos looking at where's the blood, where's the rest, is it at the property, is it further down the highway south, could the body have been moved from one place to another, and that's why there's blood loss but also lack of blood at the final resting point. I did videos on all that locked in. It seems to get forgotten about by the whingiest, whiniest people out there, which shows that there is a selective goldfish mentality, and those people do lose credibility immediately based on just that, right? And I'm sure some of you will agree too. And then ever since, which was probably maybe a few months ago, and I think it might have been a post by Tim Daniel, when explaining it to some extent, and sometimes you don't always need to look at the medical terms. Sometimes you don't need to look really deep or have the most knowledge or the qualifications. You don't have to pull a PhD out of your rear end. Just common sense can explain it at times. Heart, pumping, beating, helping, pumping blood through and around the body, right? If there's a blockage somewhere, if you call it an artery or something, it can cause issues with blood and phlegm. That other areas, if they stop functioning, that can cause issues with blood flow. It can also cause issues with the oxygen levels, having a heart attack or something like that, unconsciousness or passing out or something like that, to the point, I said I'm not an expert, where the brain stops or it's not functioning, oxygen supply is cut off, and then past a certain time period, then it's game over, right? Blood flow in arms, in legs, in areas, limbs. If the blood flow is cut off completely for a long period of time, then certain arms or parts need to be amputated and so on. So there's a time period of what's healthy and what's not. And what Tim, I believe, was referring to is depending on where the injuries are on the body and if it's fatal and immediate, but the body dies, the brain dies, the heart dies, and the heart stops pumping blood, blood stops pumping around the body, as example. If there is a cut-off as well, so blood supply can't pass through, then it won't be able to pass through and then come out of the exit point, so there was a hole in the head. Only the excess or remaining blood in those areas would come out, but then the rest of the blood elsewhere around the body wouldn't be able to pass through, like the neck area, the arteries there. If someone is internally decapitated, I might be getting this wrong. I'm not an expert. I've got no knowledge. Being honest, I've got no experience with autopsies, and yet here I am using common sense. It is possible at some point, right? Correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section if you want, but I think it's making a little bit more sense with time. But as I've always said, you don't always have to zone in to the aspect of the autopsy, whether you understand it or not, whether it's truly understood by them and the cause of death is revealed, which in this case it hasn't. You can look elsewhere to understand it. If you struggle with the autopsy, even if people will bash you for it, because there's a lot of people that have their heads shoved so far up their arse that it ends up coming back out the other end somehow, is that if you get it wrong, if you misinterpret it, a genuine misunderstanding, or you genuinely believe it to be something else, even if it's clearly not, but you can't see it that way, other humans will jump on you, attack you, insult you in unnecessary ways, and it does no good there whatsoever. The humans, though, that may disregard key points and just keep going round and round in circles and not even acknowledge nor give it a time of day to at least look into other aspects, well then you could say that's ignorant and that's problematic. But people that genuinely believe it to be something which it isn't, but that's just their thoughts and opinion, it's not the end of the world, yet humans will attack a person for that. Oh, opinions not allowed to have one. Oh, freedom of speech not allowed to have one. Oh, can't cover it from the opposite side. Oh, can't cover it from the dark side, but allowed to cover it from the light side only, and that's deemed as unbiased. But this moment I cover it from different perspectives and then show the freedom of speech in the chat, in the comment section and beyond, oh, that's a bad thing. That makes me a bad person. Oh, well, then what should happen is people from the light side should pull off a certain assassination then on someone because of the freedom of speech. How pathetic cretins! You need to get a grip of yourself. And I don't think people can. I think people need some dog walking lessons. And maybe they'll understand. It's embarrassing, isn't it? But referring back to the flow of blood or the lack of it, it was described Noah Presgrove internally decapitated. Internally. Not literally decapitated. That would mean a knife going through or something going through to cut through the skin, to cut through the muscle, to cut through the bone, right? And then it completely comes off. But if you've got like a chicken drumstick, piece of chicken, and it's bone, the leg area, and you're twisting and you're turning it and you feel it snap and it's decapitated inside, but it's not coming away because it's still held together by the skin, muscle, tissues, some tendons, but the actual bone, the vital areas are completely decapitated. It's just held together by the skin. That's how it is with Noah Presgrove. Blunt force injury, trauma, impact, hit there, wherever. Crushing or smashing, bashing, surface area, not enough to cut skin, not enough to cut through tissue or anything like that. That's all in place, intact for most part of it. But the inside, which gets the full brunt of the impact, the bone breaking, the vertebrae back there, the different vertebrae. Can't remember which numbers to wear, but they were the important ones, breaking the ribs. I think around the back of the ribs broken too. That can cause a chain reaction as well on top of other injuries when bones break and snap off, and it creates almost like a knife point, and depending which way it breaks in, it could stab into another organ, it could stab into the lung, create a hole, bit of damage, and with an opening there and blood flow can leak into it, fill the lungs up, and I think when the lungs fill up with blood, obviously that's obviously not good and you can die from it. I guess it impacts the breathing. Does it lead to almost like a form of drowning or so because it's filling up, like how lungs could fill up with water if you was drowning in water? Internal drowning, a form of blood. So hopefully I'm getting this right. I'm not looking at any autopsy report. I'll tell you something, in some ways, by not looking at the autopsy report, without looking at the diagram, without looking at all the fancy big words and just talking about it here in a more simplified way, maybe, it's actually clearer and easier to understand, or at least in my opinion it is, right? You know, at the end of the day, it's still possible in some way to have the opinion that there's enough blood at the highway and then the missing blood isn't truly missing, it's just absorbed back into the body, inside of the body, and some of it absorbed onto the sheeting and towels which have covered over Noah's body. That the blood issue, the blood loss, isn't the be-all and end-all to determine whether it's foul play or not. It can still be considered foul play, even if there's enough blood or a lack of blood, but justified by where the rest of it is inside. Meaning, foul play could still have occurred, but literally straight up at the highway and only at the highway, right? Not that it's truly the case. depending on how Noah was attacked or hurt or injured, and if finished off later or elsewhere, certain injuries may not have led to a complete blood loss immediately. And depending on how the person was, how they were, I don't know if that's going to make sense to anyone, but let me just give you a very, very tiny example. Sometimes is it like if you've got a cut on your finger and if you squeeze it, hold it, or if you hold your finger up, or if you've got a nosebleed and you tilt your head back or something, you're not going to get the blood loss coming out onto the ground. If you tilt your head back with a bloodied nose, either it holds the blood inside or it ends up trickling down the back, down your throat or something, and then it's like reabsorbed or it goes back into the body, so it's not being lost or dropped on the ground. So you wouldn't know where it actually happened, the bloodied nose, the nosebleed to some extent. And then if the person then was dropped off or arrived at the highway and then tilted the head down or fell onto the ground, then the rest of the blood comes out. And that's all you're familiar with, that spot, because that's where the blood is. And there's no blood elsewhere, so it must have all happened here. And if it all happened here, is it more or less likely to be foul play or not? So there we go. It is possible based on certain injuries and damage. But if that's decapitated inside, blood's not going to be able to pass through, get into the brain. So that's not good. Brain damage, brain dead. Of course, the injuries to the head and all that as well, and that may have come first. But if it's at the same time, which I think some people have said, the neck area, the insides, the vertebrae snapping, decapitated, disabling the rest of the blood below the heart, the area, the chest, to come up and pass through the neck, decapitated, gone. I guess it's not going to be able to pass through anymore. The blood that's still left in here will come out in some way. Was it hinge fracture, the scalp torn? So where there's an opening, blood coming out. I don't know if blood came out the ears, but it could do, and I'd probably anticipate that if there's head trauma, head impact, forced to ears, sometimes mouth, the teeth as well, the nose area. Where there's a hole, where there's an entrance, exit, blood can come out if it's major and impactful. Was it described as a bleed on the brain or a bleed on the skull because of the impact? Could leak out where the holes are, how it can pass through. But in terms of the rest of the blood lower down, can't pass up, can't pass through. The remaining blood comes out up here, but the rest down here remains inside to some extent. If Noah Presgrove was stabbed or there was like a similar torn tear on the head, if that was also down on the lower body area, that would have created an opportunity for blood to pass out that way. If it can't come up through there and come out here, it's got to go somewhere. And if there was a hole elsewhere, it could have come out there, but there wasn't a hole elsewhere. There wasn't a stab wound. There wasn't a bullet wound. There wasn't a rip or a tear to that extent like the head, so the blood wouldn't have come out lower either. So the rest of the blood remaining inside or being reabsorbed or filling up in certain areas. But then, just the fact that where there was blood loss and when it did come out, besides bits on the ground, which you would expect and anticipate, the rest of it, or part of it, absorbed by the towel or the sheeting. Caden Pressey said he went to get one, but then supposedly the service truck guy did it himself with a towel. You put some covering sheeting over a body that's bleeding and exposed, that towel's going to absorb that blood for as long as that blood flows out of the person's body. Just like if you have been clumsy and you've spilt water on the ground or you spilt some liquid, you get some toilet paper or kitchen towel and you pat it down on the ground, it's going to absorb that moisture, that liquid, that wetness. The towel, the toilet paper absorbs it, becomes wet, and then the ground becomes a bit more drier to that extent. So you can see how it can work with the blood. And the fact that, well, maybe not a fact, but the supposed situation that a service truck driver covered Noah's body first, absorbed blood. Then, beside that towel, when the police came on down, Emmy and all that, and they were closing off the scene or trying to make some attempts, they covered the body again under some proper sheeting. That would have absorbed blood as well. And that's when Dalen supposedly saw and claimed that Noah was in the fetal position whilst not being able to see the actual body. So, based on that, blood loss, but absorbed by material which covered Noah's body, you don't really see that mentioned or acknowledged enough, which is very strange, but there we go. I don't think we'll need to look at the comment section too much today because of my analysis right here, right now, which has actually turned out better than I expected, if I be honest with you, but I'll still acknowledge Tim's post because of the whole discussion with bruising. Normally, commonly, when there's a type of impact, a blow, hit, blunt item, there can be a bruise. Even if you're walking and you trip, you fall over, you bump your head, you bump your arm, your elbow, your leg, hand, palm, you can get bruising, and that's to do with the blood vessels. When the blood vessels are burst or impacted, I guess what the blood comes out, it creates a certain surface level discoloration, which is technically blood in a way, like when you get blood blisters, but that's a blister, a bruising, damaged, I don't know why I'm looking at my hand whilst I'm talking, but it seems to help, damaged area. I mean, I think I've got a bruise there, but to be honest, that's been there for a while. Do I have any bruises on me right now? And I can say I don't, which is probably a good thing, because if I said I've got lots of bruises on me, there'd be a bit of room for concern, wouldn't there? But, you know, some people can bruise very easily, other people don't. Sometimes when, I guess, people get older, they can bruise more easily because of either the thinness of the skin, weakened blood vessels. Maybe if you take certain medication that can increase the blood vessels or the sensitivity to it, possibly. And there's an impact there, a whack, a slap, a bang, or something like that. Damage, burst blood vessels, like surface level blood, well, not surface level, under the skin. That's where you see the discoloration. And I can't remember which order it goes in. Is it first purple, then yellow, or a bit yellowy, then purple? I guess it depends on the severity of the bruising. You look at MMA fighters, when they're kicked in the leg repeatedly, the calf area, the thigh, around the back, constant blows and impacts leading to the blood vessels all bursting, big surface area, and deep tissue, deep bruising, really dark purple coloured. You know, that's pretty bad. Sensitive, painful to walk on and to apply pressure on too. And just by touching it, it hurts. Simple bruise on the arm, hand, palm, you press on it, it might hurt, and that's about it. But depending on the severity of it and where it is, it can impact your movement, mobility, how you move, and the comfort levels as well. So how does this apply to Noah Presgrove? Well, from what I can remember, from the autopsy itself at least, and the way Noah was found, there was no acknowledgement of bruising. And I did try looking online, and it said the skeletal areas, the head, the face are examples of places where you can bruise more because there's more blood vessels and stuff like that. And to be honest, the legs as well. You think about it, I've got experience with bruising on the legs, or more so the inside thigh, but that's other stuff. But, you know, I don't know if it's got linked to the main arteries as well, where the main arteries are, blood vessels are also increased too. I said I'm not an expert, I'm just piecing it together from my own random thoughts, and some of it will probably make sense. At the end of the day, I don't remember seeing any acknowledgement of bruising on Noah's body, right? And if you're going to be beaten and attacked, you'd normally associate that with a form of bruising. Bruised ribs, bruised face, bruised head, bruised arms. Wherever you're kicked, beaten, attacked with a blunt force instrument, melee item, or fist, or feet, and you're kicked and punched, you're likely to have bruising left on your body. If you're whacked by a golf club, whacked by a lead or steel pipe, as long as it's not sharp, it can leave bruising. It can also cause internal injury as well, of course, but it can also lead to bruising on the surface level. The impact and the force, the whack, the hit, the impact, bursting, damaging the blood vessels, and so on. And considering where Noah Presgrove was mainly injured and hurt, it was upper body, chest, rib, and upwards to the head and round the side, the hinge fracture, the torn scab. So some of those injuries may have not been caused, or very unlikely to be caused, by a beatdown, an attack, physicality like that. But the people that truly believe that it did cause those injuries, okay, but where's the bruising? Wouldn't you normally associate bruising? Could there be an anomaly, a rare case or chance where there's no bruising somehow in some cases? I tried looking, I couldn't quite find answers there. Other people have suggested that the crushing aspect, if somehow a body is crushed, the internal stuff, organs, bones, ribs, whatever, can be damaged, but the blood vessels not the same way. Because it's a crush, it's not a slap, it's not a hit, it's not a whack, which is targeting the skin, the under the layer there. Crushed, it's like more, I don't know, steady in a way, and then it crushes inwards and causes stuff to break inside. I'm trying to squash my body in to try and feel it as I'm doing it, which is probably not a good demonstration. But as I said, I'm not an expert. It might be elaborated better in the comment section, but you let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on my analysis just there. And take in mind, I'm not an expert. I have looked at the autopsy report and it's like hieroglyphics to me, right? I'm looking at it and thinking, what the fuck does that mean? But through people explaining it in other ways and then adapting and using common sense, simplifying it a little bit, hopefully it's somewhat on the right track. I know some people have said the injuries happened all at once. If that was true, then I guess the idea of Noah falling out of the back of a vehicle or the side and then being run over shortly afterwards wouldn't be possible. Unless, when it's happened all at once, does that mean the moment you impact with the ground, the moment an object impacts with you, that one touch, that first touch causes every possible injury? Or do people mean by all at once, as in all at once over a sequence of one event and in the moment? As in you fall out of a vehicle, for example, you hit the ground head first, causing the head injuries and certain stuff. The compression of the spine or the neck area, the vertebrae is snapping and breaking, depending on how you land, all being caused at once or one by another, like a chain reaction in a very short space of time, then rolling on the ground, hitting a certain way, causing the next injury, rolling again, hitting the ground, causing another injury, and so on and so on. Based on that, can that be deemed as all in one go? Or does it have to be one hit, one whack, one attack, one piece of contact which causes everything, and then that's it? What's people's definitions by that exactly? But what I will say, in fairness, because I might as well acknowledge it, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you fall, when you hit the ground, if you fall or trip over, you can bruise yourself badly. You can injure yourself that way. There's burst blood vessels. If you fall out and you put your hands out to brace for impact, then you can get bruises on your palm. It's happened to me, right? I think it was described that Noah Presgrove didn't show defensive or reflex-based movement when maybe bracing for impact. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that might have been mentioned in the earlier days. It's just that, okay, if you do fall out of a vehicle and you do hit the ground pretty hard, depending what area makes contact, if it was like saying that the head and face area can bruise quite badly, it is contact. Your head hitting the ground at a certain force, with the ground being blunt and not sharp, your head hitting the ground could be the equivalent of your head being whacked against a steel chair or some kind of baton in a way. That injury can be caused. Would you expect bruising? If you can get bruising by being beaten, kicked or punched or whacked in the head with an object, then wouldn't you expect the same for that if you was to fall on the ground and hit the ground? And if Noah Presgrove had fallen out of a moving vehicle and hit the ground, why wasn't there any bruising on that either? So based on the aspect of foul play and a beatdown, you'd expect bruising, but supposedly there wasn't at the time. And based on certain accidents gone wrong, you would still expect bruising, but there supposedly wasn't. I believe that's what the concept is. So you'd have to find something in between. And if that links back to the whole crushing injury, it can link on to the original idea or the combination which Tim Daniels suggested, falling out of a vehicle, hitting the ground that way, incapacitated, and then being ran over, finished off by a vehicle passing on by. But with what's just been said about the lack of bruising or none, falling out of a vehicle, would you anticipate bruising on that? I would, based on my opinion, and because there wasn't, then how do you explain that? So leaving it there for open-ended thoughts, let's now head on over to Facebook and see what other people have to say. Here we are. You'll be able to find this 11 hours ago at this time of recording on the Noah Presgrove case discussion group. It has gotten quieter in recent time, but here we are once again. Tim says, please explain to me using evidence and facts of the autopsy or other sources how it's possible for a person to get beaten to death in a way that leaves not a single bruise where the deep injuries occur, or anywhere else normally bruised in a beating. I'm asking a serious question and not trying to be snarky. How does a person get beaten so extremely it collapses lungs and lacerates a spleen and a heart, yet there's only one single bruise on his heel? I remember that bit, the heel. That one bruise tells a story that his heel hit a hard surface. I don't want to hear, oh, he looked bad at the funeral. No, you're not a medical examiner. If he was bruised at the time of the autopsy, the medical examiner would have labelled it as a contusion. To be clear, I just want a simple explanation how you beat a person to death and leave no markings, no bruising. Edit, to anticipate his face was purple at the funeral. If Noah laid on the ground on his face, as was described, we would expect lividity, blood settling with gravity, to have turned his face purple at that moment. Again, the medical examiner would have labelled it as facial contusions or something like that to differentiate a bruise from livor mortis. Right. So rigor mortis is when the body, the limbs stiffen up and almost like turn into a mannequin. And livor mortis, is that to do with where a body's resting or laying and then it concentrates to what? Blood or something? Concentrating in that area, causing discoloration, like a bruise in some way, but not a bruise from burst blood vessels in the moment of impact. Correct me if I'm wrong based on that interpretation. But let's just see the comments. Why is livor mortis on his back when Noah was found laying on his side? Well, the thing is, when you're laying on your side, a part of your back may be making contact with the ground. Not completely, but the side round to the back area is kind of touching the ground. So there is that. But anyway, how odd it was, talked about by Joseph Scott, whoever that is, with all the injuries Noah had, that there wasn't pools of blood at the highway scene. Well, I kind of explained that earlier. Also said that Noah could have been hit by a bat, pipe, foot, tire to cause the back of his head to be caved in. He also said that Noah could have been rolled over by a vehicle, but how many damn times was he? Because he wouldn't have gotten all those injuries from just one. What else do we have? Janaea. That's why I respected his opinion. He didn't commit to anything, just talked about what possibly could have caused injuries. Oh, Laura. My opinion, Noah, well, there we go, that's good language. In my opinion, fair enough, Noah was laying on his back somewhere before he magically walked to the road to lay down parallel. Laying on his back somewhere else. What, you mean not by choice? Noah was moved on scene. The family knows this. Really? Where's Tammy? Noah was moved on scene. What do you mean? But at the highway, Noah's body was moved. By who exactly? See, the thing is, Caden Pressey, besides the timeline of his, visually, Caden said that Noah Presgrove's legs and arms were spread out. Jimmy Williams, undersheriff, later on said that Noah's arms were tucked in and legs were straight. So yes, the body was moved or adjusted. But for what reason and who by? Is that what Anonymous is referring to here? Carla, I remember reading that People saw Noah at his funeral, said he was covered in bruises and looked like he was beaten up. Is that because of the livor mortis or what? It wasn't bruising they saw. Jodie Barth. We've heard of Jodie Barth. Jodie was in one of the Facebook groups, and then when there was a disagreement or a calling out, Jodie ran away, supposedly. Interesting. I don't know if anyone remembers that. So, okay, an expert in a lot of different areas, as you see there, as well as Joseph Scott Morgan. Right, they're most likely from foul play. That would be a lot of blood present for external bleeding due to numerous injuries, and that the injuries were probably due to different combinations of the possibly occurring being beat with multiple weapons, golf clubs, and not the golf club again, but of a gun being mentioned as possible, stomped out and possibly crushed by individuals or UTV, dragged, hung, etc. Why would it need to be done to that extreme or extent? You know, if you're going to kill someone, you get it done quick, you get it out of the way. If you're going to try and kill someone and it's not quite successful, the second or third time should be enough. This sounds like really, really overdoing it when someone may be already dead or on the verge. Tim Daniel says hung. That's a new one. Okay. I mean, got to take into consideration. I think there was bruising or marking around the neck, but that might have been more so caused by the chain if that was pulled, hence why it broke off. But when you look at the Rebecca Zahau case, and I would show images, but then again, I think it might be a bit too risky. Actually, I'll acknowledge that a bit later with the Rebecca Zahau one. The C1 was displaced as in a hanging. Noah was internally decapitated. It just seems like overkill in my opinion. I cannot get past this, Tim. The pattern. Oh, right. We've got a couple of things here. Internal damage without external marks. Deep tissue injuries. Fatal internal bleeding. Right, even if the skin surface appears intact, occurs when a significant force crushes a body part against a hard surface, like a steering wheel in a car accident. Oh, like when you brake, crash, and you go right into it. But then again, there tends to still be bruising in those moments, especially if you've got a seatbelt on as it digs in. Blunt objects. Crush injuries. Injuries can cause significant damage to underlying muscle, rupturing capillaries, leading to massive internal hemorrhage. External bruising may be minor or absent, masking fatal bleeding occurring deeper in the body. See, the thing is, I described it once and people got absolutely triggered, is that people that are on the larger side, in a non-politically correct way, fatter people can absorb more impact without as much injury or damage, like a human car airbag. It's that stopping force, that absorption of the energy and the momentum, that when you go into something or something goes into you, being punched, kicked and whacked, the excess skin and fat on the body kind of absorbs it like an airbag and slows that force down. And once it slows down enough, that the internal organs and bones are a bit more protected. That's why wrestlers, like WWE wrestlers, the fatter ones, don't get injured as much because they can take more impact. There might be some exceptions, but there's that. Noah Presgrove was not fat. I think Noah Presgrove is quite lean, and the leaner you are, the more injuries you can sustain, and there's not as much stopping power. So it's worth taking that into consideration too. I'm sure I might get some complaints with what I said, but tough shit. I can be a fat bastard myself. If you look at my stomach or previous, I'm in a position to be talking myself, okay? Right. Of course, you can pause the video if you want. Tim, thank you. It points out that crush injuries can do this, as in run over by a vehicle. That's one of my theories. And yes, I do remember Tim mentioning that, combining being run over with earlier falling out of a vehicle, possibly. What about delay bruising? No idea what I think. Delayed bruising can happen. It happened to me Many times if I've fallen, if I've banged my arm against a door handle, if a dumbbell has kind of whacked against my leg or something, you get the pain, you feel it, but you don't see the bruising immediately. Sometimes you might if it's quicker, if it's more impactful, damaging than other stuff, you can look, nothing there. Next day you wake up, then you notice it. As for the timing of when it actually happened, you may not know because you went to bed with it, Sam. But let's see, Tim. Nobody is avoiding being served. Who told you that? Wait, where does that come from? Right. I don't think Michelle's comment links with what Tim's getting at here, unless there was another comment elsewhere. Moving on. I still think he was ran over with the side-by-side. Did it have a skid plate underneath? Why? Would the skid plate catch onto Noah and drag him? Chest, other cause of death. Internal hemorrhage. You can't break most of someone's ribs and both their scapula without leaving many, many bruises, at least a dozen. The force required to break ribs alone would leave many patterned markings, not just bruising. I mean, may not be the best example, like in movies or TV shows when someone's been beaten up, mugged or attacked, a few broken ribs, normally associated with a few bruising as well around the body area, the chest, tummy area, slightly on the sides. Just for now, I'd love to hear an explanation on this. From my research, it's not possible to beat someone with enough force to do the inner damage and show no pattern on the outside, because where the true damage is at, areas nearby could have been impacted too, but with not as much concentration. You know, sometimes during a beatdown, a beating, you're not going to get repeatedly punched in the same exact spot. There will be other areas where you might get kicked or punched or pinched once or twice, enough to cause damage to the blood vessels. And then other areas where it's a bit more deeper, causing more internal damage there, but the surrounding areas can bruise. And in some ways, bruising can expand over the areas. Even areas where maybe it wasn't quite damaged or impacted, it just expands over. Kind of like when you get a swelling, or if you've been bitten in one specific area, but then the inside kind of spreads out a little bit. The bump, the mark, the itch, and the warmth, the heat, it can. Julie, if it was not so complex, then the professionals in the field would have already been able to make the determination of what happened as for cause of death. If there was a beating, it does not mean any of his friends are guilty of harming him. It could have a few or more people that are not associated with party goers. What Julie Ann is suggesting here is like the map analysis that I did recently, my video, where a stranger party goer or a stranger passerby could have crossed paths with Noah and led from one thing to another. Tim, a beating is not a complex set of injuries. Beatings are obvious, very obvious. Most beatings that would cause a death would leave a dozen or more strikes to the body. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but let's just say in an alternative reality, if Noah Presgrove was simply beaten and attacked, and there could have been bruising, but before he was found, people decided to put Noah's body in a fire or something to try and destroy all the body, break the bones down, desecration. Would you be able to determine if it was a beat down or not with the limited material you have left? Can a beat down become a complex set of injuries if on top of it desecration is involved? Would anyone agree with that? Of course, that didn't happen with Noah, to my knowledge. But then again, you could say if Noah was to be killed somewhere, died somewhere, and then moved on, that's kind of a form of desecration, I guess. It is an umbrella term, that. I think most of desecration will apply to if you're temporarily buried in the ground and then dug back up and then moved on. Like desecrating a tomb, desecrating a memorial, a grave. I don't know if it applies the same way to person dies, dead body, found in the original spot, then moved on. That can be considered tampering and foul play, but desecration, adjustments, damage and destroying, maybe in some way destroying the original scene area. But, maybe it was a slip of the tongue, but wasn't it Sarah Long that referred to the house as the scene? You remember that? I wonder if I need to do a separate video on that sometime, just to get people to remember it. Anyway. Then why are there so many in the medical field, or many professionals would have been able to say or determine this was all by the autopsy? Now the civil lawsuit is also leaning towards the cause of death being a beating, but the civil lawsuit is based on opinions and claims to some extent, right? Well, to prove it was a beating, the plaintiffs would have to prove that, not the defendants. And now knowing the plaintiffs want to track on 6 more months in order to be allowed to find and serve the remaining defendants, sounds like they managed to get OHP's documentation and realise that they're going to have one hell of a hard time proving anything, so they need 6 entire months to go find people. Right, delayed tactics, but okay, I see. Tim, exactly how I also read this, Laters asked for another 6 months. They got the papers, they asked for and realised we need some time to work out another way to win the wrongful death suit. The civil suit literally is because there's no evidence to bring criminal charges. They said it's a last-ditch Hail Mary to find information, and on top of that, it was Dale and Keith Presgrove that said if it doesn't work out, or depending on how it goes, he will have to pull out himself, if people remember that. Some things we just can't know, and some things we can ask are they're in line with what the autopsy tells us. The autopsy is the only real piece of evidence of what happened. Now, would the autopsy have been drastically different if the ME actually got down to the scene immediately instead of taking a detour down to that other place in Oklahoma? It wasn't Marlow, it was Lawton. Yeah, Lawton. What was that all about? Right, show me a bruise in the shape of a fist. Okay, I'll be on board 100%. Show me a series of long stripes of bruising. I went back and forth in my thoughts on this long time. I can understand what you're saying. Makes sense as you have explained it. My thoughts are probably still all over the place. The autopsy will show bruising, so that is correct, or patterns are struck. Would these 5 people be just hanging out on Highway 81 waiting for Noah to wander off again? Why all the different stories Texas boys have supposedly been cleared? Well, what Laura says here about Texas boys supposedly being clear, no source, no context given, but don't worry, WarLike Wrath will provide it. It was said from Robin Smith, the aunt of Noah Presgrove. Robin Smith made a Facebook comment or post, which I've documented on my channel already, saying 5 Texas boys were cleared by the police. But do 5 Texas boys total the amount of Texas boys that were present at the party, yes or no? Or was it only a certain portion of them? I don't know personally. But that's what Robin had said, right? Would these 5 people, who are the 5 people, what, defendants or Texas boys you're referring to, hanging out on Highway 81? Is Laura Dutton referring to what BBC said or some others about Avery, Brylan, Logan, Jasmine, Carter being on the highway searching for Noah? The thing is, if at least their phone ping at the Sandplant crossing or before, that Noah's body's further on, that those 5 people wouldn't have been anywhere near to where Noah's body was to be found, so they wouldn't have been responsible for moving the body down there if they've kept a distance. But could they have seen or been observing someone else? You could put that argument across. Julie, multiple blunt force injuries with the cause undetermined to this day. What does that tell you? A heck of a lot. Just waiting for the day the family Emmy gets Noah's full autopsy. I mean, yeah, if the full autopsy hasn't been shown to us, well, then it could tell a different story, of course. You only can work with what you've got. The Rebecca Zahau case, there was a full autopsy there, but that was from 2011, and then looking at it in 2025, so you would expect a full autopsy there. And the details in the Rebecca Zahau case weren't as brutal, nowhere near as Noah Presgrove, but the details, the extent was a lot vast, and that could happen with Noah eventually. Do you know most vehicle deaths are listed as multiple blunt force injury? Right, well, I mean, a vehicle is blunt as an object and not sharp for most part of it. Can you get beaten to death by a car? I mean, you've got the Incredible Hulk, that could happen. I do not have the knowledge. Okay, not possible. There wasn't a beating. If anyone could read the autopsy correctly or truly understand the injuries, it's very, very clear it wasn't a beating. So really, it's just going to go back and forth until there is supposedly an answer down the line. Then it'll be interesting to measure where do people go from there. All the injuries appear to have happened simultaneously. So if it happened all at once, as George says, then I guess George isn't in agreement with what Tim Daniels suggested as a theory, as in falling out the back or the side of a vehicle, hitting the ground, and then shortly afterwards being finished off by a vehicle running him over, right? If it happened all at once, it couldn't have been that. The thing is, some professionals may say, like with what Laura's getting at, some professionals may say it supports a beatdown, and I've seen it with my own eyes. Other experts have said it supports an accident. The fact that experts don't think in line with one another, the fact that there isn't a general consensus amongst experts, what makes you think there's going to be a consensus amongst the general public, right? It's divided. It is where it is. What's this? Maybe you could post some of their work. On the flip side, how does your head get caved in if struck by a car? Hopefully there's no dodgy images to demonstrate that, because I don't want to get done by YouTube. Oh boy, I think there was about nearly 100 comments on here, so I'll try and get through it quick. Head hitting the ground. As in maybe falling out of a vehicle. Sitting on the road and was hit from behind explains why his injuries were mostly from the waist up. No broken legs. Right, I think the autopsy shows he hit his head on a hard surface. He's got the kind of injury you'd see if someone dived into a shallow pool. I have seen it where people have dived into a shallow pool or shallow water, hit the hard ground underneath or a rock, the head split open and bled. So there is that. Head injury, then neck injury, internal decapitation, spinal injuries all happen at the same time. Right, okay, I kind of get that. The hinge skull fracture, he either fell out of a moving vehicle or hit his head on a hard surface like the roadway or the underside of a vehicle, but it all happened on the road. I mean, if you fall out of a vehicle and all those injuries happen all at once, but then some final injuries occur to total it all after being run over, then it means it didn't all quite happen at once. If you're drunk, you don't sit. Maybe you could get a job for the sheriff as a criminal investigator. I hate the thought of his friends having something to do with the death, but now I'll agree to disagree. Could have been passed out, fallen out the back of a vehicle, ran over. Okay. So the lie is the problem. It's a vehicle, but exactly how is the question? Right. At least there's a bit more conversation here without it going downhill. How do you know what a drunk person would or wouldn't do? And as well, speaking of being drunk, it was Georgia at the party that was sat down, back up somewhat straight, head in her hands, knees drawn up, and was sitting up. And Georgia was drunk. She managed. So Noah Presgrove could as well. Could have been two vehicles involved if he, let's say, fell out of a vehicle, stunned or disorientated, sitting laying down, whatnot, then a second vehicle hits him. Yeah, I get that. But the thing is that isn't all in one go, is it? But that's the question that I was asking. Does it have to be as in the moment your head hits the ground, crush, break, snap, whatever, all done at once, chain reaction? Is it all at once or a chain reaction back to back? What defines us all in one go simultaneously? Simultaneously all happening at the same time or all happening around the same time, one after another, within a 0.5 second interval with each one. If you fell out of a vehicle, hit the ground, and then immediately a vehicle was behind and got hit that way. But then again, if that did happen whilst the person at the front of the line driving with Noah in the back may be totally unaware that Noah's in the back, if there was a vehicle behind with the lights on, they would see Noah Presgrove in the back of the truck. So if Noah did fall out and then that vehicle then ran over or hit him, then you could say it's a hit and run because they should know and should have seen Noah if you're behind. If you're at a distance and you didn't know or see Noah in the back of a truck up ahead, and then moments later you found him on the ground, or you didn't see too quick and made contact with something, but you didn't react like how Chris did, well then that's still a bit dodgy. So some interesting ways of looking at it. I might have to do a demonstration of it at some point, possibly. We're all going to have our own theories. Quit being, okay. You saw Bruises, his back would have been bruised if hit from behind. But wouldn't you get bruises if you hit the ground in a certain way? I mean, I'm just basing it off times when I've fallen over, I've hit the ground, bumped my head, I've had bruises on me. But maybe it's the angling. Lots of ways. Compression injuries lacerate organs, so from being run over, lots of vehicle-related trauma can kill fast, with most of the bleeding going inside the chest and skull, not onto the skin, as we see with Noah. Most of the blood was found inside of the cavities and so on. Okay. Oh, briefly after impact, you can have lethal internal injuries with little visible black and blue. That's why lack of bruises does not rule out a vehicle strike. It does, however, make a group beating that takes more than a few seconds much less likely, because beatings usually leave patterned bruises. Anything else? If the heart only pumps briefly after impact, you can have... Okay. Didn't JSM, who the hell's that, deaf investigators say it could have been made by an object coming into contact with his head? What's that one of? An example of a car? I was inside my truck and backed into by a loaded semi and was bruised all to neck. They want to set the hit and run narrative so if you die immediately, which I don't think Noah did, the heart would stop beating, possibly would not bruise. Yeah, burst blood vessels require blood. If there's no blood, they can't really be burst, or they do burst, there's no blood there, so it can't bruise. There's that as well, fair enough. People keep saying you can't beat someone to death without bruises, but that's not true. Bruises only show when blood leaks under the skin and the person lives long enough for it to repair. If someone dies fast, the heart stops pumping and the blood never has time to rise to the surface, so the fact there's just one bruise. I mean, not all the time, but like in TV shows or movies, when you do get someone that has been beaten, attacked or mugged, but they've lived to tell a tale, they're still alive, meaning the blood's still pumping around the body, meaning there is the opportunity for the blood to leak out and form under the surface skin. Fair point, but let's just see the responses. Guys, there is a lot, but it's a good thing, this. Oh, Becca Ann. I don't see Becca's comment though, so where's Becca's comment gone? That's a bit weird. But Lily says to Becca, you'll have certain markings, lacerations, impressions through, and me can obviously determine. Right, Joan knows. Right, do we actually see a direct response? Mike Johnson, I don't see Mike's comment either, so I don't know what's going on here. I just can't say how he was killed. What I do know is that I don't fully believe the accounts given by the particos or by the police. That doesn't mean the police are corrupt, but it's common for them to hold back details. I mean, if there are additional details in the autopsy which haven't been shown public, that could tell another story as well. Looking at the autopsy again, I concede you did make a good point regarding circulation and bruising. Sure signs that blood continued to circulate for a number of heartbeats, maybe a dozen even. The evidence that he had heartbeats after massive injuries is in the subjural temporalis hemorrhage and the chest soft tissue hemorrhage, which required there to be at least a few systolic heartbeats to occur to move that blood, and he did bleed a lot into other cavities. I think he died within seconds of the major injuries, but this is enough to move blood through his body to where he would really expect to see visible bruising, so I'm still going to have to stick with my original statement. No bruising doesn't always mean no beating, but with the other internal hemorrhages, yes, we would also see bruising. So, basically, if you were whacked in a certain area of the body and it caused absolute instant death, there'd be less time for the heart to pump the blood around, for then the blood to be able to circulate to that area where it's been damaged and cause the bruising. I'm just trying to think, when people have been whacked on the head, instantly died. When a person's been pushed over, whacked their head on a rock and died, did it lead to bruising? I can't remember personally. How would that work for someone like me? I bruise under the surface but have never shown any physical signs of bruising. I don't see where Becker's comment is. The internal hemorrhaging means his heart did beat at least enough times to hemorrhage into soft tissue. A beating would take some time. And to be honest, based on most people's concepts of a beat down, a beating, it's not just one punch, one kick, one hit, it's multiple, right? And sometimes a beating can take some time to kill someone depending the situation and the experience that they have. Being shot in the right area can be fatal and instant. Being crushed or dropped from a great height can be instant, but being punched in the face or kicked doesn't always instantly mean instant death, meaning there's more time for it to go on, and for more time for the beating or an attack to go on, the higher the chances, I guess, of the blood vessels and the bruising to occur in some way. But as said, there was really no bruising on Noah's body, so if there was a beatdown, it would have had to have been a very quick one, maybe. Maybe? So it does go on and on. Oh my goodness, we're not reading that one. So if you do want to pause the video, you can. There we go, Becca. Finally, I can see her comments. Actually, that's not true. They believed the wound to his head was most likely caused first. He would have passed right away, so his heart would no longer be pumping. Bruising requires circulation. You can get some seepage of blood to the soft tissue, but it won't have the same definition or colour. Head injuries occurred first, with the amount of damage to his head would have passed away quickly. Maybe, yeah. If one was to fall out of a vehicle head first, there's that possibly. If someone was to be attacked and it was head first, right? Depends what you target first, right? The wound to his head or the neck, or did they both happen at once? Well, it can happen kind of at the same time. If you're going to be whacked in the head with a golf club, it might cause a head injury, but it's probably not going to cause the internal decapitation. But if there's some kind of like crushing and impact, as in like a hydraulic press, that when the head goes into the ground, the neck spine compresses, causing it to snap, break, and so on, that can happen all at once, more likely. Thoughts on the shower being filmed and sent out via Snapchat? What? Is that a question? Is that a statement? Never seen that before. Let me get a screenshot of it just in case I need to use it in the future. Anybody watching right now as a witness? Yes, it was described that people did see the Noah being filmed having a shower, but it wasn't explained on what platform. So what's that all about? Noah's bruised according to a young man at Noah's memorial, but that's been mentioned as it's called liver mortis, post-mortem lividity, or hypostasis. So once again, Dr. Denise here, but your theory is wrong in my opinion. Oh, Dr. Denise. That's a new one. Excuse me, Dr. Denise. What about Dr. WarLike Wrath, PhD? Oh no. Got some competition there. Where's Nurse Strawberry at? Tim Daniel. No, this is not true. Search the autopsy for the word contusion. You will find nothing. He was not bruised. He was not bruised, but didn't Tim say the heel, there was a contusion then? Was it only one heel that was bruised? Won't both heels hit the ground anyway if you used to fall out of a vehicle? Or maybe one leg hit the ground, the other leg didn't, or didn't take the full impact. What's this? But I can understand how laying on his face all day could cause liver mortis to set in his face, and how that purple colour would confuse people at an open casket. Right. God, it goes on a lot. Oh, we've got Trace as well. Depends on if you or anyone else got to see the body right after the autopsy or before the funeral. Home gets him dressed and ready for viewing. Listed the bruise on the heel. Yep. Oh, Donna, but a different Donna at the funeral. George, that was Justin Roy who said that, and that screenshot was published in the Daily Mail, so of course. Okay. Yeah. What was it? The conversation between Jack Newton and Justin said, I know what a bruised face looks like or a beaten face looks like, and that's how Noah was. Something along the lines of that. Denise says, my dad looked like that too as for the bruised face, and he was not beaten. That's the difference between liver mortis and bruising contusions. So I think what I interpreted earlier on, I was kind of on the correct wavelength. And there we go. That's it for all the comments there. Wow, that was quite a lot to get through. With that all being said, hopefully you found the video somewhat interesting. I think there is a big positive to take from it, is that on the case discussion group, it's a combination of people from the army page and some from the Sofa Sleuth page. In other terms, the light side, the dark side, merging as one, where when there is a merging, you'd expect the most tension and conflict and resistance, but that's not always the case. Sometimes it can be worse when it's actually isolated and individual across a wider gap. So that's interesting the way things have gone there. And what I mean is, right, some people believe it's a beatdown, some people believe it's bruising, some people believe it's this or that. And yet the conversations, what we looked at today, did it lead to full-on blown-out assaults and insults and whininess or pettiness? No. It seemed like people were able to actually communicate a little bit clearer. Wow, what's going on? It might be because, as people like to use the quirky words, some of the mouthpieces weren't about to stir things up or to trigger stuff. And, you know, like what I've said, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what platform or area it is, if you've got some people that don't like one another or big gobs about, and they all are in the same room as one, it will be a natural disaster. It won't go too well. Some people need to be separated or held at leash at times, or muzzled. Then when what I've noticed as a pattern in previous cases of whether people are misunderstood or not, if they've got a platform or a place to share their voice, even other times they're not given a chance, or it always goes wrong, or they're deemed as the bad one, or they are volatile towards someone else. When they're in their own little natural environment, when they're separated from all the other triggers and people, they speak for themselves, they speak clearer, and it's not as dark as you think. And then the other person that's been separated, when they speak clearer. But when they're all in the same room, it can be a problem. Sometimes you've got to separate people to understand the different sides of the stories, and you'll get clearer, more cooperation as well. If you'd like to check out my previous videos where I've done analysis on the autopsy, some diagrams, giving my rough thoughts also, you can find that top right corner screen where the eye symbol is up there. What we've looked at today, does it change my outlook drastically? No, because the direction that I've headed in is like what I stick by with the map analysis, what I've done. I can do an extended map analysis, or more so a actual demonstration of two vehicles being involved and being close to one another, and the complications with that, which I can explain in a separate video. Be sure to do that. But like what I said, even if the autopsy report wasn't that clear, it still remains a bit of a mystery as for cause of death. That's got to count for something, right? A level of importance. And what I've done previously is, if I didn't understand the autopsy, or I wasn't too sure myself, just look elsewhere. The autopsy isn't the be-all and end-all. It might be the most important piece, but it's not the end result totally. In the meantime, you can look elsewhere. As for the damage to clothing, damage to personal possessions, what is normally associated with certain damaged clothing with a certain injury or death of a person. For example, in general, if you've got lots of road rash markings, scrapes, marks, abrasions on a certain area of the body, and that is consistent with clothing that was worn with that individual that had lots of scrapes or holes or tear marks, you could say there was friction, one thing led to another, under a certain circumstance, dragged along, rolling along, scraping, something like that. That's just an example only. When it comes to events leading up to Noah, even though it doesn't directly link to the moment of Noah's death or the actual causes of death, it could explain the foreshadowing of what was to come next under certain circumstances, right? I mean, not that it did happen with absolute confidence, but let's just say in a different circumstance that Noah Presgrove was found dead down the dirt road heading east, where you could say the cause of death could still be unknown, but the fact that it's been stated that Noah Presgrove was seen walking away from the party and heading that way sets the tone and shows a bit of foreshadowing as to what to expect to some extent, with the balance of the unknown. and then incorporating questions and theories of did anyone leave shortly after and go in that same direction, maybe they would know more. That's how you can structure it when you don't know or don't understand the main documents or papers. Look at the indirect patterns and the indirect movement and activity to link onto the possible ideas and theories. Then look at the hard evidence of material that was found on Noah or personal possessions and items nearby and the condition and state of them, and is that consistent with the injuries to Noah's body, and linking onto a possibility of a type of cause of death there. I mean, if you've got a top on or shorts and you're going to be crushed by a vehicle or crushed by a hydraulic press, then likely your clothing isn't going to be damaged the same way as if you was to be dragged across the ground. Considering that Noah Presgrove's black shorts were ripped and damaged and torn from what Parks in True Crime had said, how did that happen? It is hard evidence and proof that Noah Presgrove was wearing white shorts before he walked away from the house and continued wearing them as he walked away too, then really the black shorts, regardless of what condition they were in, is irrelevant to Noah's death. But it'd still be nice to know how the black shorts were damaged beyond, or somewhat damaged, from what Parks in True Crime says. That's all I can say. But the family didn't seem to go against it. They just seemed to nod their heads in that interview with Parks in True Crime. I mean, the black shorts could have been damaged by this side-by-side rollover, maybe. But if Noah's wearing white shorts when he dies, what caused the damage to the black shorts then? Right? So, thanks for watching. Be sure to hit the like button, share the video, and if you want to if you can hype the video on mobile, that'd be appreciated. Hopefully this video does get more awareness, because I think it's quite an important one, and we'll see what happens next. Thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.